up, everybody? Happy Sunday. I am Al Mega, and welcome to the new International Comics Crusaders. Let me bring in the big boys themselves. First up, the one and only Chris Buse, the boss of Twitter over here. You know, he's killing it. Even better than the Twitter owner.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Hey. Your boss. You're the boss. And let's bring the other badass all the way from UK, the one and only Dave Elliott. What's popping?
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome.
Yeah. Let me first direct a shout out to my brother from the UK, Dave. As you will have seen by now on our social media feeds, Dave outdid himself with the promo image for this new series we are starting today. The Shadow today is the Shadow, and next time is Doc Savage. And today we're keeping it below 1 hour, so you can chill on a Sunday, but look at the gorgeous picture we have posted on social media. Dave did a great job with that one.
Yes, he did. It's going to be an amazing two-parter today, focusing on two legendary characters with legendary creators behind them. It's going to be entertaining.
I had some help with some very good art to play with.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but it looks great. Looks great. Look
Let's
at this.
show up that beauty. Look how gorgeous that is.
Gorgeous.
Dave, man, you should be in the marketing business.
and to all of these people who are now screaming and saying, "Oh, there's a naked woman. This is a bad show." This image actually is a reference to an original pulp cover from the 1930s. So know your art before you scream.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't get perverted, sickos.
And I can only presume it's Margot Lane in the Shadows.
Yeah. Exactly. That goes. I didn't select this one, but I will later post it on social media. This is an homage to an original Shadow cover from the 1930s.
I will say I wouldn't mind, coming home to some lady dressed like that in my bag. God damn. I mean, just minus the gun, please. I ain't do nothing, ma.
Yeah. Without spoiling anything, but just imagine the Shadow comes home and it's 40 years later and he's still young and she's old. We saw that in our Chicken Run. How that played out.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, at least he doesn't have to worry about getting her pregnant, I guess.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So let's dig in, man. Let's start digging in, Chris. So this is your bad boy over here, and let's go with that legendary The Shadow. Awesome legendary character, and boom! Oh, what's this?
Here we go. We go. I picked this one. I mean, if you want to talk about The Shadow, and you have to bring up certain aspects, because a lot of people still say, okay, The Shadow was basically one of the templates for Batman, which is also very true. But The Shadow actually didn't start as a character. He was only an announcer, fictitious announcer on the Shadow Mystery Hour, whatever it was called. I didn't look it up, so sue me. But there was a radio program called The Shadow Show, The Shadow Mystery Hour, and you had an announcer who was basically the narrator. He was not a character. But the character was so popular that they said, well, basically, we need to do something with this voice, with this character. And at some time, Orson Welles voiced, and we all know how cool Orson Welles sounds. And so they said, well, basically, we need to do something with this character. So they were developing a radio program. And at the same time, the good folks at Condé Nast, who owned the character they had created for the radio program, said, well, basically, let's give this guy a face. And what you see here is an amazing portrait by Jerome and George Rosen, who became together with not Jim Steranko. Jim Steranko was later, together with a nice fellow named, hang on, I just have to look at my reference. I should have written this down, because all I'm getting now is the Rosen covers. Graves Gladney, another artist, great artist, whose work we will see in a minute, created this image of the Shadow.
So they didn't take the look from the radio host or anything?
No. They completely created him from whole cloth. And the writer who became widely associated with him is William Gibson. And he wrote, I believe, 170 of the 180 Shadow novels. Because these were thick pulp magazines. And the guy at one time made commercials for Remington, the typewriter company, because he was typing 10,000 words a day.
God damn, a day? Jesus.
Burning typewriters to no end. And he really got rich. Those days, the guys really could make a lot of money because they were paid by the cent. And if you imagine, I mean, write. And the guy had a typewriter in every room, even in the bathroom, because whenever the fancy struck him, he wanted to write a line. And then it was like the modern day where you have 5 tablets and you will go from one tablet to the next. And
I'm sorry. The bathroom is the last place I want a typewriter because I'm not going to be, taking a poop and typing of it. Oh, man, wait, that was a great idea. Excuse me, Flash.
And I mean,
what he could have done with Google, Docs, eh?
Oh my gosh! Right?
Actually, he'd probably have never got off the toilet.
I mean, it was, but needless to say, once the Shadow hit the newsstands, immensely popular character, came out twice a month, and just imagine you have a 60-70 page pulp novel basically, and you type 2 of those in a month, and they go out every time, and they're snatched up by readers. And we're talking 1931. There's no television. Radio is still sort of in its infancy. This is premier entertainment for young men.
I do want to point something out here. I'm looking at the name, and they actually had to patent the name here. Registration, U.S. patent, official. What?
Yeah.
I've never seen that on a comic book before.
Well, it was kind of like the forerunner for the trademark.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And because it was going to be used in it was already being used in multimedia.
Okay.
Actually, they didn't invent it because Edgar Rice Burroughs of Tarzan fame, he was the first popular writer who trademarked the names of his characters. So he actually predated this.
Interesting. Oh, I love all that type of business stuff like that. Like what made them say, okay, I want to make sure I own this because the government.
What is even crazier in a few years later, one of their competitors came out with a character called the Batman. And he was, not the Batman, the Black Bat. And he looked a lot like Batman with a cowl and a cape and a black dress, a black outfit. And he came out the moment the pages for Detective Comics 27 went to the printers.
Oh, say word.
Immediately, the pulp company, I believe it was Fiction House or whoever, they sued National Comics, DC Comics, and said, no, you stole that from us. And it is only due to the diplomatic gift of Whitney Ellsworth, who was the mastermind at National DC at that time, the big editor-in-chief. And he said, oh, wait a minute, let's make a deal. We didn't know of your creation, and we did this innocently. We had no idea this was coming out. So let's do the following. You keep the character in pulps, and we do our character in comics. And that was the only reason why they allowed the Batman to see print. Isn't that amazing? There you
go. Isn't that him right there, the Black Bat?
Exactly. You picked the right cover. Look at him.
Yeah.
Very similar to the Batman.
Very. I mean, look at this. Except that he got a gun, though. Oh, but so the Batman the first time around. Ooh.
And I think it's worth.
But hang on. The interesting thing about the Batman, I always keep saying the Batman. The Black Bat he was a wealthy DA who got blinded in an attack by gangsters. And he went to have a miracle cure, got his eyesight restored, but kept it a secret. So officially he was a blind man. Wow, that sounds like Dada.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So the only thing I was going to point out, like the difference between also the Shadow's creation and Tarzan with Edgar Rice Burroughs is the Shadow was the creation of the publisher. Walter Gibson wasn't the actual creator. And it was also in reaction to, again, looking like so if you want to go back and look at a window in time, pulp detective stories were huge at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
And what made the Shadow different was it was basically it one-upped everybody else. It gave a character to the detective story. Not that there weren't others, but it really superseded them all by being sort of such this, darker vigilante over and above everyone else that just captured people's imagination and took off.
What is so interesting about the Shadow is, and if you look at this cover, do you see the Shadow in this cover?
I see a shadow.
That's his cover. That's his contrafile. That's his profile. And they did these very artsy covers where they hit the lead character after a while, and they just didn't see him, but you knew he was there. What is so interesting about the covers they did was at the same time they had these spicy detective stories where you had semi-naked girls in bondage. And the Condé Nast, the Shadow, they really depended on, no, we have this great character, we don't need this, we can have a little bit titillation, but we don't go over a certain line. Versus the other publishers, they really were heavy on the TNA and bondage and this kind of stuff to sell their books. Versus the Shadow, he was selling the books because he was the Shadow.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting.
And it was the same as, it was like Tarzan. Tarzan, like 9 times out of 10, was Tarzan saving Jane or some other woman on the cover, or the villainess, or the villain, which is sometimes a woman. Again, it was just enough that he's rescuing the woman. He's rescuing the woman from the diabolical villain, and that was enough. The fact that the villain was the one who had been tearing away at her, because so many pulp detective stories were. The image on the cover was very much the woman was under threat and there was no sign of anyone coming to the rescue.
Exactly.
With the Shadow, we knew, like, even if it was just the shadow, like this cover, the shadow of the shadow, it was just enough to know that rescue is on its way.
Exactly. Okay. And it's a sort of also a visual fulfillment because we're in the era of the Depression. And here's this very wealthy man about town who's also clever and who has no problem with killing the gangsters. This is like the perfect wish fulfillment. And he was always attacking these masterminds who orchestrated the downfall of America or tried to orchestrate the downfall of America, where you had somebody to blame. There was this Asian guy who was his nemesis. We saw in the movie version. Or there was this other mastermind. There was always some conspiracy going on. The Shadow would root out this evil. And he knew what evil lurked in the hearts of men. And there was this great foil for young men who said, well, no, not everything is bad. We have protectors out there and they do the right thing where the police can't.
Do you know, though? I want to ask you, though, in your research of the character of the Shadow, I mean, and especially with the design look, why such a huge nose? I mean, if you look at just this cover here, that's his brim, his eye socket, his nose.
because it's also, I mean, this is a sort of the Harlequin. It's the sort of the guy who looks like a hero, but he's also a little bit of a villain. And he looked very handsome when he was not in disguise. We saw that in the Alec Baldwin movie. They did it quite brilliantly. He transformed into the Shadow.
Yeah, if you also look at the things like the classic Punch and Judy shows, the Punch, who was the kind of almost the villain of the piece, but it was kind of like the clown face. The clown face, if you look at those masks, it was very much the Shadow's look, that very large nose, very bulbous. So it may well have been the influence have been taken from that.
But here again, we have the shadow in disguise. And how do we know that he is the Shadow? Because he has the ring. And if you don't show his face or anything, you see just the hand with the ring. And this is his special ring. So he's very much the character here who's holding the girl or protecting the girl.
This looks great, though. Beautiful cover, man. I mean, 10 cents twice a month, so 20 cents a month. You were getting you said 60 pages, so 120 pages of adventure a month? Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, this is amazing stuff. And I mean, this is when we talk about Doc Savage. I mean, you can talk about the Black Bat as much as you want to, but the Shadow and Doc Savage are very much Superman and Batman at that time.
Oh, agreed. I mean, this is wild. Look at this.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, they really had great artists there. And this was basically, they kept the look more or less the same. They used only the two brothers, the brothers Rosen and Gilles Meadow. And they always, you knew this was a Shadow cover. They were always unusual.
It's fire.
Oh, no, they always totally stood out. And even if you just look at that great design, and again, this just as a piece of design, just a little bit here about what, if you think at the time, right, the Shadow was purely a newsstand publication. You picked it up at the newsstand, you picked it up at a train station or whatever. So you had to be able to see that logo from like across the news store or across the street to see if they had it, and it stands out. And look at that at the moment. You've got like a completely clear white logo against a very dark, in this case, sort of brown, deep brown red back cover. So it pops off. And what you don't see now is often where people like they cover the logos, they put logos going up the side or very small.
Yeah.
And it's just, but this was an age where you weren't you didn't pre-order it. You didn't have a necessarily a subscription to it. You might have done, but the bulk of the sales would have been off the newsstand, and you had to be able to, they had to leap off the stands at you.
Yeah. Nice. And you could sell this magazine over the counter, no problem, because the problem was also which killed a lot of pulp magazines when they became too racy. Politicians in certain areas used this as a platform and said, no, you must brown back those magazines, you cannot sell to children anymore. The Shadow had no problem with that. There was a lot of violence in there, but the covers looked clean. There was no sex, no stipulation. It was very clean.
I find that funny. Blind Adam brought that up on his show where he goes, why could you show people getting killed everywhere, but the moment you show a titty, everybody goes nuts?
Hey, that's America. That's America. It's completely the opposite in Germany. Okay, but you also have the racism. I mean, you have the bad guy from Asia coming in and buying everything and trying to control America. But it's a strong image, and it looks good. It's a great image.
No, this is a gorgeous image, and I mean, then just having the Shadow looking in front of him like that. I mean, great design as well. I love this.
Yeah, and he is so supremely confident, and I think that made the Shadow also interesting because you had these outlandish villains who were a match to the Shadow, who were not just normal gangsters. You had the first kind of superhero, supervillain dynamic, and this character he reappeared. He was not only in one story; he came back for several of the novels because he was one of his arch nemesis.
But if you compare it to more modern covers, here you have a guy who's, again, as Chris said, supremely confident. He's sitting in his chair. The Shadow's in front of him, shadow cast over him, and he's sitting there. He hasn't got up. He's not like in that sort of, I'm going to get your photo. He's just there like, yeah, okay.
He has a smug face, like, get out of here, bro.
and I think this is what a lot of. I was flipping through the most recent Batman, and it's always the scheming villain who's twitching his mustache, and he's always, you don't need anything of that. You only need an image of a confident guy, and that's your top villain.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, is that him trying to talk about the bat?
I say, get out of my face. We don't need the black bat around. Get rid of the competition.
That's what I'm reading there. That's hilarious. But a great posing as well. These painted covers are gorgeous. Again, I mean, this is why I love what Alex Ross does nowadays. He kind of brings back the feeling of stuff like this in a sense, you know?
Yeah, he does. I mean, you had some interior art which was mostly very crude. You had some pencil drawings. Kirby did a few of those, but there was very little money in those, and for the most part, they didn't look very appealing. But you had the cover. The cover sold the magazine. There were no images. You mean you had just words, and you had to pop on the newsstand.
I love the gun pose. Definitely such a 30s gun, old school. You're like really close to the body and you're bucking shots. Instead, nowadays everybody's going sideways. Like they're pushing the bullets out.
Well, he couldn't. Yeah. He had no choice. If you look at it, if he had his gun out, so he had was aiming at it, you wouldn't have fit that composition on the cover. So he had to be like, he's got to be like that.
Yeah, I get
it. Yeah,
you
want to show the girl. Yeah.
Yo.
And it's always it's just perfectly composed covers. I mean, just brilliant.
Whoa, this is the poster. I would take this as the poster. Take off all the verbiage and just leave the imagery. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's sick, bro. And look, everybody, they're smoking.
Yeah, I mean, these original paintings still exist in part, and you have to pay 4 to 5 figure sums for these today for the original paintings.
Oof, I would have something like this if I had the money. Heck yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Dude, look at this. But you see again the pose. He's always keeping his arm. Is that? I'm telling you, this is why they missed so much back in the day.
That's why George Lucas said, well, basically stormtroopers can't shoot straight. They put in the pulps.
Yeah, because they keep going like this, bro. You know, if the stormtrooper would stretch his arms just a tad.
Well, if you look here in that shot, the bad guy is clearly like he's literally got his gun stuck up the Shadow's nose and firing. So it's like,
hey, but maybe there's some coke in there. Who knows, bro? Hey, it was legal back then.
Yeah, it definitely was. But also, I mean, the color compositions are great. I mean, it's this red, the dark blue, black on his coat, her gold, this greenish. I mean, just the color composition is great. I mean, this is 1940s. I mean, this is great.
And again, you could tell the difference between the red background and, you know, his cloak right here. That the different shades of red, you could still see the line work there, which you could tell, okay, listen, that's the background. This is him. Again, well done, bro.
It's perfect. It's really perfect.
I mean, and just even look at her, all the details. I mean, right there, collarbone. I look at simple things like that, the line in the arm. You know what I mean? Wow.
Yeah.
But look at that composition, though. Like you've got this woman who he's struggling with her. He's not. She's the one firing. He's struggling with her. He's holding her back. You know, we don't know. Is the guy in the foreground? Is he like a GI agent? Is
he kind of looks like Jack Kirby in the profile?
Yeah.
Well,
maybe
is that Ross Kirby? Is that Ross Kirby?
It wouldn't have been the first time that Jack had posed for a cover. So
true. Hey, there you go. Ooh, look at this. Now this is weird and gorgeous though at the same time.
Yeah. They really got really bizarre in the 40s because they really had to try very hard because it was the pipes were coming to an end and you still had to maintain an air of mystery, make it interesting, make it pop. And this is kind of bizarre cover that kind of totally pops.
Well, these are the last days of where you could actually go buy a Coke with Coke. So I think that this is why, you know, the highlight of that era.
Yeah. Well, I mean, opium was still in high demand, no?
But don't forget, even though the Shadow was almost a genre of his own. It was like the pulp detective. However, even if you're doing pulp detectives, like you look at superhero comics today, we've, you know, if dinosaurs are popular, hey, guess what? Like, you know, there's a dinosaur running down Metropolis. So, you know, putting monsters in, even prehistoric monsters into a story, or even even if it's not directly related to it, like this could have been a shot where the story was set in maybe the Natural History Museum.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah. But the cover can make it look like they're threatening. He's in a threatening environment because that's about it. If you want to get people to buy it, it's to sell. It's yeah. So. But
it's also brilliant with the curved dinosaur head there. I mean, this is brilliant. This is very cool.
Well, it gives the layer. It gives the impression of layers. Like you're going like the you know Dante's Infernos, the 7 layers, 7 rings of hell. Like you're going. You know, they're all coming down on him.
This is great. I love it. Pre-day and the Joker here. It said, "This is the king."
And this is Mr. Stranko. This is when these got published as paperbacks, as the Doc Savage novels, if you want to call them that. They had all these great new covers, and Jim was doing a lot of covers for the Shadow reprints.
Yep,
and he was doing them justice. He did a good job on those.
Yeah, no, I think he did something like about 26 to 30 covers.
Oh, damn, that's work, man. They put in work back then, kiddo. Oh, now we get into like more. This looks more sci-fi than pulp. Here, look at this.
Yeah,
but it's also. I mean, this goes back. I mean, he got a lot of inspiration from the pulps because this is very reminiscent of what is it, the Marvel pulps or Marvel Stories #1, where you also had a girl in a glass container. So Marvel also started with pulps. All these comic book publishers we know today, they all started with pulps.
That's hilarious. Why you got to put them in a container for, folks? Oh, wow.
Isn't it cool?
Wow.
So this is an example. So when Jim was laying out and designing his covers, he would do a pencil sketch like this before he actually did the final art. So he might even for any cover might do like 2 or 3 different versions like this before he actually committed to paint on the final piece.
Dude, that is fire.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Just wow. This is
And
great.
it's
so gangster.
It's kind of reminiscent of the Joker, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. But this is great, man. Oh yeah. What? Is that the Sandman here? What's going on?
Who knows? Who knows? Ask Jim.
Oh, but they're definitely getting a little bustier and curvy. I'm starting to see. We're seeing a little bit more as the covers go. This is Steranko.
Yeah, I mean, this is the 60s. This is a lot more is permissible. Again, after a period in the 50s where you couldn't do that stuff.
But again, he didn't do it on every cover, and it's like, you know, she as long as you don't do it all the time,
exactly,
they could get away with a lot of this.
Yeah. It was also. I mean, you buy that because the cover looks cool.
It does. Yeah. It does, and hell yeah, man. Hey, I have this bad boy in my box somewhere.
Yeah, we're jumping a few years into the 70s, and DC got the rights to put out a Shadow comic. It was very short-lived.
Can I ask you really quick though? Do you know what was the space and time between the Pope and when DC finally picked it up? How much time did we not see the Shadow for?
That 20
we saw years. Yeah, something like that. The pulps ended in the mid 40s, and that was the end of the pulp. That was the end of the pulp era, and we saw the reprints in between. I believe the paperback reprints in between, somewhere in between. Okay. And then DC said, "Oh, he's popular again. Let's do a comic book." There was also a comic book that had the name The Shadow, but had nothing to do with the Shadow. I looked through it and said, "Well, basically, I'm not going to show it here because it's a waste of time. It has nothing to do with the character."
Gotcha.
But obviously, the name was available in public domain, so they could use it in comic books. But the character itself is owned by Condé Nast, and DC got the rights to use him in a comic book series. And they got the perfect artist for this, I would say. Mike Carlotta did a great job on this series.
Yes, he did. Yeah. I mean, just this brings me back to thinking of back home in New York, you know, the 7 train coming at you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love it. What a beautiful.
Yeah, and his style, I think his style is was perfectly suited at that time for this sort of. He returned the character to his pulp roots, the early 30s. This is clearly not set in America in the 40s. This is very much the early 30s. This is the Depression era.
And I do see a difference, though. There is a difference between the old and new, because I see in this he brought in the 2 gun, and everything you showed him before. He wasn't presented with 2 guns. It's, you know, just the one gun.
There's actually a sequence. I think I picked it for today. That is very reminiscent of the Shadow movie. How the Shadow movie opens on the bridge. I mean, they surely got inspiration from this. And this is such a gorgeous series.
And look at that, by the great Denny O'Neil, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And Big Mike. Oh man, look at that opening. And this is what, 1973.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And this is a time, and also a time when DC was really doing a lot of different kinds of comics, not only superhero comics. They were doing this. Joe Kubert had Thor. Were doing all these sort of different kind of comic books.
Thor was cool, man.
Rima the Jungle Girl, Kong the Untamed.
Oh, yes, and they brought a lot of artists from the Philippines over, who also worked later. A guy who also worked later on the series. Once Carlotta had left the book.
And he was a beast.
And this is gorgeously detailed.
Yes, it is. In the panel usage too. I mean, the way it just drops and all.
And there's a picture I will show you later on that is very, very had to have been very influential to Frank Miller, because you also see a lot of Miller's Daredevil in this.
And look at just the sequence. Oh God!
But look at that! But look at that! That's 9 panels on that page.
Yep, gorgeous, and a story to tell within it. I mean, even if it didn't have words, you could tell what's going on, man. Oh, look at this! Oh, is that Benny Blanco from the Bronx?
I mean, how good is the man with faces? I mean, and facial expressions. He is amazing.
A king on that shit, yo. I mean, look at it. You look at her lashes. There's women that'll die for lashes like that nowadays. I mean, you can buy them at 99 cents at the beauty shop.
I was about to say. Yeah, right.
Oh wow!
Isn't that a great page?
This is amazing. Then the way he just breaks down this bottom. Look at that. Dude, man, we're never gonna see shit like this again, man. That's what breaks my heart. We really won't.
I don't know if you see Todd Browning's The Freaks. That's like. I mean, I didn't know about that at the time I picked this comic up, but later on I saw that.
I actually saw that movie in the movie theater.
Really?
That's an experience. Yeah, that's an experience.
Yes, it is. I can't imagine. That shit fucked me up on the little screen.
What's that? What's that?
You're definitely older than I thought then.
The immortal.
No. Not when it came out. I saw it in the 80s in an art house cinema.
Just checking.
Yeah, not in the 1930s. Here you go. But isn't that gorgeous? I mean, this is also the setting. It's perfect. You can do a lot with this setting, this carny setting, and the quote-unquote freaks here, and who are the bad guys. It's very interesting, and it really fits right into this era.
I love that Conan talk. You miserable wench.
Yeah, it's the 30s. I mean, isn't that a great shot? Isn't that a great shot? The midway of the carnival. Yeah. Yeah, it's a kind of cool mix of the 70s, the New Hollywood, the art of New Hollywood meets the 1930s. It's very interesting. It's
kind of like what they try to do with the Batman film, but here it's in comics predating that Batman film, bringing the old with the new, with the modern, you know? And very nice. I loved it.
Yeah.
Hey, wow.
Because I love on Mike Cluter's covers. One of the things I love that he did very often, which you can see here, is there's the elements, like the foreground elements in solid black line, but he would do the background in a gray tone wash. So when it was scanned, and then the color was laid over the whole cover, and it just gave that great effect. And a lot of it wasn't the only one doing that at the time. There was like you go back and you can see, like in the 60s, Russ Heath was doing it. But no, it's just wonderful. It just evoked, again, it just, this is a comic book, but it evoked the feel of the pulp covers as well.
But when we also see Kaluta and he's working together, and what beautiful music did they make? I mean, we will see that in a minute. Jesus Christ. I mean...
Look at that action. And the coloring. And everything is in its place. Your eyes fixated.
I believe that's the issue Bernie Wrightson inked, if I'm not mistaken.
Wrightson, another legend. May he rest in peace as well, man. Got to meet him once at least.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and I got to say thank you for everything you do. Listen, I always remember, though, that's the first things I say. Before I say anything to you, first let me start by saying thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, fire. I love that sequence right here.
Look how detailed all these panels are. I mean, this is amazing. It's just incredible.
Yeah. I'm taking a closer look at the panel now, and it's I definitely say that's Bernie Wright.
Bernie Wright. Yeah,
particularly in the page that's up on the screen right now.
Yeah, you see it in her eyes and the face is very bright, isn't it?
Exactly. If you look at her face, it's that whole panel, and the line work on the background.
Hey, look, DC's gonna take a giant step forward in 74.
Right? Good to know.
Did it take that giant step forward in 74?
You know what? We need to research that real quick. Did they?
I don't think so. They fired Carmen Infantino, so here you go. Okay,
that was their giant step forward. Let's lose the best stuff we got. All right.
But look at the city scene. I mean, this is New York in the 1930s. By the way of researching this on photos, I'm sure he did this.
Yeah,
that still it looks like New York in the 80s too, minus the suits.
That's true.
Actually,
That's very true.
I'll tell you, the first time I went to New York was in the late 70s, and there were areas of New York that weren't far off that. On the Lower East Side.
LES, you got the Bronx, some spots in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd been to the street and the house that Jack Kirby was born in, and that was just like, that wasn't that long ago, and it's still, again, it's sort of, a lot of it would fit with this. So
awesome. Awesome. Death is bliss. Is it?
Okay. Isn't it great how he designs this? This is fantastic.
Yeah. It is so good looking. Everything. God.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, we're not gonna get this anymore. Oh fuck! Look at this goddamn page.
Frank Robbins.
That's Frank Robbins. I know a lot of fans, that's why I included. I'm not so huge on his shadow, but I know there's a lot of Frank Robbins fans out there. So here's to the fans who love his style.
That. I mean, like, look at that page.
Yes.
Like, there's no defined panel borders. The panel borders are the wisps of. It's the fog itself is the panel borders, and the way that the shadow comes out of that.
Yeah.
His face in the top corner is also quite cool. How he lurks, how he peers through the fog.
Yeah, is it a separate panel or is it just in there? It's just like it's just integral. It's just that's beauty.
Take notes, new artists, please. Come on, step it up. Just kidding. Send hate mail to Chris Busat.
And the guy knew how to write. The guy knew how to write.
Oh wow.
Oh, Frank Robbins was a bloody awesome writer. And again, one of the few people that DC allowed to write and draw his own stories, in like with detective.
And on the Flash, he also wrote the Flash. He didn't pencil it, but he wrote it.
Yeah.
Knight of the Ninja. Oh,
yes, Kaluta again. And tell me that this is, and maybe go to the next page, tell me that this is not influential on Miller. If you go to the next, I believe it's the next, no, not this page, it's going to be the next page, I think. This one, the last panel. Is that not Daredevil by Miller?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is so Miller.
I love it. What beautiful work. What is this?
And now
there's a complete difference there.
Okay, this is Marvel Comics who got the rights to do a graphic novel. And they did one in the 80s. And they had Daniel Neal write it, coming over from DC. Kaluta draw it, pencil it, and Russ Heath ink it. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And what we will see for the next, I believe, 10 pages is just this amazing work.
Yeah.
Get it? It's reprinted by it today.
Yeah, I believe Mike told me at the time that originally I think it was Mike was going to do the book with Dave Stevens, but Dave just couldn't just commit to something like that. So Russ Heath stepped in. Wow.
That would have also been interesting. But I think Russ Heath, I mean, I cannot imagine this any different than the way it is. I mean, this is so gorgeous.
Imagine with Dave Stevens, though, you keep mentioning these legends that we've lost. Jeez, bro. Yeah. Can't imagine.
And if you think, I mean, normally publishers are very squeamish putting out stuff with swastikas in it these days. But this is also, it's available on Comixology. You can buy it today. It's available digitally. It has been reprinted many times. It should be available on Amazon in soft cover, hardcover, I don't know. But it's still in print after so many years.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's still available. It's still not in print. But
available. Okay.
You're right. But it has been reprinted many times, I think. And it is definitely available in digital format.
Yeah.
Man, but this is so beautiful looking. Just wow. Just wow. I'm floored. Man. I hadn't really looked into shadow comics, like this. So this is why I was looking forward to this, learn more. So thank you, fellas, man.
Gorgeous the artwork is.
Yeah, this makes me want to just go out and buy. I've seen these in the wild. And I mean, folks, you could find some of those 70s shadow books at dollar boxes, for real. I've seen them.
Yeah, definitely.
A shame that they're in there, but scoop them while you can.
Absolutely.
Oh wow!
I mean, this is just brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant storytelling. It has a classical feel to it. It's like an old movie from the 30s or 40s. It's well done. It's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Particularly that, like, the look at the eyes and nose on the bottom panel. That look on his face, the line work there is amazing.
And the constant laughter, definitely very Jokerish, huh?
Yeah. It's a brilliant piece of work. I'm not so 100% up on Denny's writing here, but it's still gorgeous work.
Ooh. Very nice. I mean, look at that fight. The way it's going. And
it's also a time in the 80s when Marvel was willing to do a little bit more experiments, and they were doing a lot of interesting stuff in their graphic novels.
Well, I think it's one of the things. I think one of these days I'd like us to have a conversation that would be a very much, particularly as Marvel's What If is out streaming right now, doing a kind of a what if, because there's a couple of different threads we could take. Like one of the things you brought up, Chris, in the past is, Jack came on board at Marvel mainly because a couple of the key guys in Stan's stable at the time had died.
Well, yes, Matt Baker and Joe Manili had both died.
Yeah, so what if they hadn't died and Stan had never got into Marvel at that stage? Or conversely, what would have happened? What
would have happened? Kirby would have gotten credit for everything.
Yeah, but we also discussed this other thread the other day, and I brought this up because people were saying, Jack was sort of the art director in the 60s at Marvel. He was the art director officially in the 40s, and Jack was just the office boy.
Yeah.
Well, Stan was just the office boy. What would happen if Martin Goodman had said, okay, there's my cousin and he can write okay, but there's Jack who can do art really well. I make Jack the boss. How would have that changed Marvel?
Or even just the idea.
That's a what if episode right there.
But the idea of supposing in towards the mid 60s, as we edge towards 1970, Jack and Stan had basically come to terms with things, and they acknowledged they actually brought Jack into the fold so that he didn't go to DC and he did his projects at Marvel.
Right.
Because I think that the repercussions of that might have been that Roy Thomas wouldn't have got to do maybe quite so many of the new projects he did in the early 1970s once Jack had left, because they knew Jack was a void to fill. Like it was.
And I mean, Jack was already writing, and don't tell me that a lot of these issues of the Fantastic Four, especially in the middle one, which is the strongest one of the first 100 issues, were not written by Jack Kirby. They were written by Jack Kirby. Stan dialogued those, but they were conceived by Jack Kirby whole cloth. And if he would have continued with the Fantastic Four and explored and integrated the new gods into the Fantastic Four, I mean, here you go.
Well, it would have been integrated into Thor, because that's what the plan was. But before we digress too much, what I thought was very interesting is Marvel is now crediting Jack Kirby with co-writing Fantastic Four #1.
That's excellent.
About damn time.
They should
have been like that for a while.
And I saw a cover that was they had these, what was that, Entertainment Weekly, where they had these Eternal pictures on the cover. They also had one for Jack Kirby. I mean, this is the way it should be.
Was it though? I actually.
Or was it fake? Was it a fake? I didn't look into it any further.
I think there was several people who jumped straight on that very quickly and started posting an entertainment cover with Jack Kirby's photo.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if they actually did or not. I don't think they did.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we flash forward to the 1980s. Howard Chaykin is the big star, and he's assigned, or I don't know how this came about. Maybe he had the idea. I can bring the Shadow back, and I put him in the 80s. And for a long time, this was where the Shadow was then situated in the current time. They brought him back, and he hadn't aged. That was the conceit.
Is that why they call him the Weird Avenger of Crime? If you look here.
Yeah, basically. I mean, and look at where this is going. This is for mature readers only. And we see right away the scene is stolen from The Godfather 2, of course. This is the very famous scene in The Godfather 2. Hyman Ross gets killed. But here we start with what has become a cliche in the meantime. All the old agents of the Shadow get killed. They're all old pieces. They all get killed to draw the Shadow out of hiding. I mean, this plot has been done to death in the meantime. But I think when Chaykin did it was still kind of fresh.
It was. I mean, this looks kind of crazy in a comic. So if you're a kid picking the Shadow up for the first time, when you see it, it's like, oh, god damn.
That was not intended for kids, so here we go.
Yeah, but listen, a newsstand did not care. I'll tell you that much.
No.
Yeah, and you get this gorgeous Howard Chaykin art.
How is the man?
Howard Chaykin at the height of his power in the early 80s. I mean, you can argue that, but he was really cooking, firing on all cylinders at that time.
Yeah, he was. I mean, look at it.
I mean, this is just gorgeous. And this is here, you have this is Harry's daughter, so this is Margot. Margot is the white-haired woman. They all aged, they have kids of their own, and then who walks in? The Shadow, and he hasn't aged a day. That's the next shot.
Oh,
there
wow.
He is. I mean, yeah, you want that suit, you want that look, I mean, that is what kids these days call toxic masculinity, but this is the 1930s guy in the 80s, and he's going to teach them how they did it in the 30s.
Oh man, could you imagine if he was able to try from that time to now, and they said you're a toxic man? I mean, he would have put a whooping on their ass. All right, I'm gonna show you how toxic I am. Hold on. Hold my drink.
Hold my drink, exactly. Hold my martini.
But that is a great image there, definitely. Fire, yo. I mean, it's kind of crazy though. The story. Imagine that you seeing your kids and they're like super older. And how did they not get any piece of who he is in them and slow their process?
Yeah, well, it's I think it's also it's Chaykin who came up with this backstory that he had found the magic city of Shambhala, which is basically Shangri-La, which was a trope in the 1930s anyway, and they were basically Wakanda in China. So they had all the scientific advancements, and now he had a flying car and everything, and he stayed there and he didn't age.
Gotcha.
And this is the story where this is basically his origin story, and he's working for the real Lamont Cranston and stealing his identity when the guy behaves like an ass, and he basically more or less kills him, but he didn't. And now the old guy wants to finish the job. It's a great four-parter. So well done. And Chaykin is so good at drawing men in suits and, well, women in lingerie, but we all know that, but very, very nicely posted.
Yeah.
Very nice indeed. And
this
again,
is, and then DC said, well, we jump off on this. We give the Shadow an ongoing series set in the 80s. This is a flashback issue drawn by no other than Joe Orlando. This is the first Shadow annual, and this is drawn by Joe Orlando, inked by the great Alfred Alcala. And do Orlando and Alcala work great together? I mean, this is amazing stuff. I mean, you bought a comic like this on the newsstand and said, "Wow, this Shadow Animal, I need to have that."
Oh, the Chupacabra, man! Right before the Chupacabra, look.
No, it's just the atomic. It's the atomic explosion on the Bikini Atoll. And that guy is full of radiation, and his wife is in a cult. And so, what do you do with a guy who's full of radiation? You conceive a child. Here you go. That's how you do it in comic books, kids. Only in comic books. Which is the very next panel. Here you go.
Oh damn.
Okay,
holy crap. I guess he loved blue too.
Yeah, well, why not? And this is where the Shadow makes the mistake and spares the child, which will come back to haunt him in the main series.
How dare the Shadow? No mercy. You got to kill the kids too, man. No mercy.
Exactly. and who did they get for the main series? But none other than Bill the Man Sienkiewicz. I mean, those first couple of issues. If you want to relaunch the Shadow after Chaykin, who do you get? You get Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean, and how good is Bill on this series? I mean, that's the time when he really comes into his own. I mean, this is after the New Mutants, I think.
Yeah,
this is just
good. Wow, look at this cover, dude. Holy shit. And what is he shooting? Uzis? Because look how many bullets he's dropping on that.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
And look at how, I mean, this is a comic book. I mean, nobody can touch that stuff, even today. I mean, that guy is in a league of his own.
It's amazing.
It's so good. Man. I mean, it's so good. This is just brilliant artwork. I mean, And there was an audience for that in the 80s. Give this to a modern reader and say, oh, this is shittily drawn. No, this is brilliant. This is actually brilliant. This is expanding the medium.
I'm sure people thought the same on his Electra series. Oh, this looks crazy. And now when you got older, you're like, oh my God, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there were a lot of people who said this is crazy.
But crazy is not bad.
Yeah, and let's underestimate. Like, yes, the artwork's great, but Andy Helfer did an amazing job on the writing.
Yes, absolutely. He wrote the whole series till the last issue, which would have been 19, I think. Yeah. And this is and he really moved along with his artist. When we will see a few pages by Kyle Baker, he really moved along because he moved it into a more absurd realm, and he was really going with this, and he was a brilliant writer for that. I mean, Andy Helfer, tragic story there, but he really rocked it at that time.
This looks wild. What is this? The Shadow Club? Jeez.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Oh,
just look at this. How brilliant this is.
This is the violence that's going on in New York now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like this. They're beating up old people and all. I mean, look at this. Crazy. Yeah. This is a guy. See, the only difference here is that maybe he has his headphones on. Now it would be somebody with a cell phone, right?
Yeah, well, that's how it goes. I mean,
look at this. Look at the color usage here too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
This is so clever. I mean, this is so intelligent. I mean, it goes beyond. If you put this against the Amazing Spider-Man at that time, I mean, there's no comparison.
But that was if you look at Bill's work on New Mutants as well, it was that's what everybody picked it up for. It was like, wow, is he really like? How is he able to do that in comics?
Yeah.
Wow, this is bugging me out. I gotta look this stuff up now.
Mm-hmm.
Really
yeah, ironically, this has been reprinted by Dynamite. It's the Marvel DC license on it, because they have the rights now and they reprinted the old DC material, which is crazy. I mean, DC make money on this. Why do you give it to Diamond? It's crazy.
I mean, what's your money?
Yeah, but again, it's like it's the reality is, unfortunately, it doesn't actually like sell enough. Like if you look,
it's true. Yeah.
I mean, it's everyone's tried to, there's been like, the Shadow has moved through time. They've had like, the 70s and all of that, 80s, and now he's in the present day. I actually worked very briefly on what was nearly a Shadow TV show.
Great, cool.
But that was going to be set in the future.
Interesting.
So it was kind of like Shadow in the world of Metropolis, but not the Superman Metropolis, the Metropolis of. If you go back and
they actually did this with the Phantom, the Lee Falk character. They moved him into the future in a comic book series.
Man, dude, I gotta get this run. This is all you're making me do right now.
I read it when it came out. I'm proud to say I read it when it came out, and I mean that was really a great time in the 80s when you were a comic book fan. You had to look for this kind of stuff.
Is this a Challenger? I mean, that car's out now, right? Again, dude, man, you're killing me here. Look at this, and it reminds me of back home. Really does.
New York in the 80s.
Yeah, when we had the arcades, when you used to have the ninja stores where my 13-year-old ass could go and buy some sides and ninja stars, and then go play some video games for quarters, folks, actual quarters. It was fun stuff, man. Good old days.
They're really going independent here, and this is now what do you do after St. Vincent Cavage leaves? You have a fill-in issue, penciled by Marshall Rogers and inked by the next artist who's coming on the book, Kyle Baker. This is interesting. This is Kyle Baker doing Marshall Rogers. It's a great combo also.
It is.
And this is when Kyle Baker comes on. How do you follow Bill Sienkiewicz? You go to the next guy who is completely into this, who has the same sensibilities. And this is great. I mean, Kyle Baker did a great job on this series.
Yes, he did.
First time I saw Kyle Baker, I said, "Well, this guy is brilliant."
Yeah.
Oh, look at this effect here. Jeez, that looks dope.
And they're doing this in a DC comic book on the newsstands. I mean, this is brilliant.
And monthly.
Yeah, I mean, amazing.
Typical hair, right? That he does.
Yeah, but I mean, there's certain. He's tried to keep it in continuity, but this is also a great page. I mean, this tells you everything. There's a shooter on this tower, and this is Texas shooting the kids on the campus.
Of course, it's Texas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it happened in Texas in the 60s, but this is also, look at this page. I mean, damn.
Yeah. Amazing stuff, bro. And I think we should stop here before you get into this one.
Yeah, it's the last page. We have one more page and then we're done anyway.
All right, okay, so let's do it. Let's finish it up.
Yeah.
We got to keep it under 2 minutes right now.
Yeah, that's if you click on, this is the last page.
Wow,
this is the shadows reduced to a head, and he's back home in Shambhala.
Yeah.
And everybody's making fun of him, basically. She was basically saying, "I deactivated your voice recording because I couldn't stand the snoring." You see a little bit of a power shift here. Mm-hmm.
Wow, excellent.
But what you missed was, I think in the next issue, that the issue that had been drawn was never published. The Shadow's head was put on a robot's body.
I know, but it was published, and I saw it. It's totally ridiculous. They put him on. It's Iron Man. Iron Man basically was the Shadow's head, and he said, "I'm loving it. It's even better. And can fire rockets."
Yep.
Too funny. Well, guys, this has been great. You know, we promised to keep it under an hour. We did just that because on the next episode, the big man himself, the badass of UK, is going to show us the badass that was the Man of Bronze, Doc Savage.
The first man was the Fortress of Solitude. Not Superman.
There you go.
Doc Savage.
There's going to be so much to talk about with that, but this has been great on the Shadow, man, and you definitely are going to make me peruse my LCS for some old school stuff. Folks, you know what to do. Yeah. It's Al Mega, it's Chris Buse, it's Dave Elliott. Next ICC, we're going to have the Man of Bronze, all right? Stay tuned. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Much love.
Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
See you guys.